So, the recent turmoil in British politics has led to public unrest, which begs the question, doesn't it? Is it time for change? The government is set to announce billions of pounds worth of spending cuts and tax rises this week. Surely what the country needs now is competency and support. And maybe, Richard Tice, a whole new political party to come in and shake them all up.
Well, a very good morning to you, Bev.
Morning.
And there's no question that people are fuming with what's going on. People have lost trust in politicians. They've lost confidence in the system. What works in the UK at the moment? Which public services are working well, even though people are paying the highest taxes for 70 years already? And we know that we're about to be sort of confronted with even more tax rises in a couple of days' time. And the real tragedy, and I've been campaigning on doors just yesterday, where I'm standing at the next election in Hartlepool, the real tragedy is there's no need for any tax rises whatsoever. Actually, the government's balance sheet, if they know how to run the country properly, is strong. There's so many areas where there's vast amounts of government waste. We all see waste everywhere. Absolutely. We're looking at our own household budgets and you're saying, right, how can I save £5 in 100? Businesses are doing the same. If the government did the same and said to every single manager of every spending department, you've got to save £5 in 100 without touching frontline services, that's 50 billion.
Well, I guess
the energy scheme.
Jeremy Hunt would say, well, I am introducing spending cuts to we're not going to spend as much money. They're going to have to cut their costs.
But they're talking about cutting frontline services. They're not talking about cutting waste. And you've got to cut the waste. Their energy scheme is absurd. It puts all the cost of this energy cap on the taxpayer, tens and tens and tens of billions of pounds, as opposed to the producers. So that's absurd. We've got the renewable energy companies making off like bandits and receiving 10 billion of inflation-linked subsidies. So there's no need for any cuts at all. What you've got to do is manage the country properly, manage the money properly, and we should be lowering taxes because that's how you get higher wages, you get higher growth, and guess what? You get higher tax revenues in the medium term. And that's even before you talk about the immigration issue.
Isn't that what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng tried to do, though? She came out with a very much a Tory budget. She was going to spend, she was going to keep our taxes low, we were going to generate growth. And the market's crashed, Richard. So
what they didn't talk about was how they were going to pay for it. So they didn't talk about cutting wasteful government spending. They had an unfunded, taxpayer-funded energy scheme, which was completely ridiculous. I produced an emergency energy plan back in August, which said you've got to we're in a global energy war, right? You've got terrorists blowing up pipelines. So you've got to adopt a warlike response to that. You've got to put the cost of the energy war onto the producers, not the consumers and the taxpayer. That's how you deal with it. That means that there's tens and tens of billions of pounds, possibly 50 billion quid of our money that actually wouldn't be landed on the taxpayer. These are huge sums, but if the government did that, if they adopted our plans, you don't need any tax rises, you cut taxes, you go for growth, and then you can have properly funded, efficient public services.
So I bet there's not a lot that our viewers would disagree with you there. How is Reform doing as a party? How do you break through in this country to make any meaningful difference?
The good news is people may well have seen that all of a sudden we hit 8% in the polls last week.
Yeah.
It took UKIP 19 years to get to 8%. We've achieved it in 21 months. And then the day later, there was another poll at 9%. So sure, polls go up and down. There are different pollsters. The point is, we've got the momentum behind us. We're the only ones saying we know how to stop the boats. I mean, forget the government's latest scheme with the French. We've had three of those. It won't make any difference whatsoever. We know how to stop the boats. We know how to run the finances, to cut taxes, to grow the economy. We've had almost 5,000 new members join us in the space of 3 or 4 weeks, almost all of whom we think are former Tory members. And the momentum is with us. And I think in the next week, after we hear what the Chancellor says, we will continue that momentum. We will continue with some big, bold announcements. I'm saying to people, watch this space.
So a lot of people are getting in touch saying, this is easy, Richard. What you do is you get Reform, you join up with UKIP, you join up with Reclaim, you all just form one big party together. How does that look?
Look, the reality is we've got a relationship with the SDP we've talked about, but at the moment we are, in terms of the momentum and the polling and what people are talking about, it's Reform. Look, it's not easy in a two-party system with first past the post for anybody else to break through. The Greens, the Libs, they're making no progress whatsoever. We're the only party with any momentum at all because I think people have got confidence. that we know how to organise the finances, we know how to get the economy growing, and actually we're the only party that is absolutely committed to stopping the boats. To do that, you've got to adopt the Australian system. You know, they did the tough things and they stopped it. And that's what people want. I was on the doors yesterday. People are steaming mad. They know the system is unfair. Billions of pounds of hard-pressed taxpayers' cash is being spent on this illegal migration crisis, and it's only going to get worse.
So, next election, how many potential MPs are you going to be able to field? There'll be people here going, who is going to be my Reform candidate in my area?
I've already got 550 candidates. We'll be standing everywhere except Northern Ireland, so people don't need to worry about will there or won't there be. Yes, there will be, but there's still plenty of slots. So for those who want to get involved, please do apply, please do join. Democracy works when there's other options, other people with different ideas, new ideas. After the next election, I'm very confident we'll have proportional representation, at which point it's a complete game changer.
Yeah, well, Richard Tice, you'd make a very good MP, and you're nicer than the rest of them. So I think that would be marvellous. Let me know what you think about Richard and the Reform Party. Does it speak to you? GBViews at gbnews.uk.